Okay, so we are going to do polynomial factoring or polynomial division. Sorry, we did factoring. We're doing polynomial division. So when we divide one polynomial by another, we obtain a quotient and we obtain a remainder. If the remainder is 0, then the divisor is a factor of the dividend. So basically what it's saying is I'm going to divide by a polynomial into another one. If that polynomial goes in and my remainder is 0, then it is a factor. Linear factor is a factor of the form ax minus b, where a and b are real numbers. So I will mention linear factors quite a bit. That's usually what we're using when we're doing polynomial division, is looking at these linear factors. All right, this is kind of to show you what polynomial division is. So this was just in your notes for you to have. But we'll walk through this. So essentially what it is that if I have 2x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4x plus 5, and I want to divide x plus 2 and see if that is a factor, what we do is I take this x and I figure out how many times can I basically divide that into 2x cubed. So it's kind of like when you're doing long division, you're like going, how many times can I fit 9 into 50? It's kind of the idea. How many times can I fit x into 2x cubed? Well, what that would be was 2x squared. Because you're thinking of the 2x cubed as being divided by the x, that's going to leave you the 2x squared. So once we get this, we actually multiply it to both of these terms. So we would end up with 2x squared times x, which would be 2x cubed, 2x squared times 2, which would be 2x squared. And remember, we are going to, like in long division, we are going to subtract this whole new polynomial that we made. So this subtracts from that. They kind of cancel out and they're gone. And then what you have is a negative 3x squared, and that is a minus. So you're subtracting this 4x cubed, x squared. So that'll leave you with a 7x squared. So you will like basically repeat this again. So now, oh, and then you drop down the next term. Sorry, I forgot about that part. Drop down the next term. So what we do now is how many times is x? Divide into negative 7x squared. Well, once again, if I divide that in there, I'd be left with a negative 7x. So the negative 7x times x will leave you with a negative 7x squared. Negative 7x times 2 would leave you with a, I'm trying to figure out how they got a positive there. That should be a negative 14x. So once again, these will cancel out. So we have a 4 minus a 14. So this should actually be negative 10x here. And we keep on repeating that process over and over again. How many times does x go into negative x squared? Well, it'd go in negative 10 times. It's like I was just checking something. Yep. Then, what was I? Then we'd end up having, this is your 10. So we'd end up bringing down this 5 for a new polynomial. Like I said, how many times does x go in there? It'd be 10 times. 10 times x. And then 10 times 2. So those are both negatives that we have there. So this would be 5 minus 30. Like I said, that's kind of the process here. Sorry that there was a typo on there. So we're going to determine if these are in fact going to be factors. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that polynomial long division. So we have x cubed minus 2x squared plus 5x minus 4. And then we have x plus 3 is the first one of these I'm going to test with. So I want to see if x plus 3 is a linear factor. So I'm going to divide it into that polynomial. Like I said, I'm going to start with this x. So how many times does x divide into this x? Well, the answer to that would be x squared. So really what you're doing is I'm taking my x cubed and I'm dividing by this or whatever it is out here. So it happens to be just x. And what I'm left with is x squared. So you make sure that that x squared lines up here where there was an x square. Oops. Sorry, something went funky on my screen there. So then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this. So x squared to x is going to be x cubed. X squared times 3 is going to be 3x squared. So this whole part here gets subtracted. So ideally what happens here is that this first term essentially disappears. It's no longer there. It's really the second part that we have to worry about. So we have a negative 2x squared minus a 3x squared. That will leave us with a negative 5x squared. Then I bring down the next term. So now what I'm multiplying into is going to be the negative 5x squared plus 5x. So how many times does x divide into negative 5x squared? Well, if I divide it by that, it'll leave me with a negative 5x. So negative 5x times x will be negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times 3 will be a negative 15x. And once again, remember, we're subtracting that. So like I said, we kind of cancel these out, then we cancel these out. So I have 5x minus 15x, so 5x plus 15x. Then we drop the next part. So how many times does x go into 20 or 20x? Well, that would be 20 times. So 20 times x is 20x. 20 times 3 is 60. I subtract. I'm going to be left with 4 minus 60, negative 64. So we kind of mentioned this earlier, but this is not 0. So our remainder is not 0. So usually we have a remainder rate r up here, r 64. So remainder is not 0. So that tells me that x plus 3 is not a factor. Okay, so now we're going to do this again, but with our other factor. So the same polynomial. Here. Let's just put some dots again. So we have x minus 1 is what we're going to divide into now. X cubed plus 2x squared plus 5x minus 4. So divide x cubed by x is going to leave us with x squared. X squared times x is going to be x cubed. X squared times negative 1 is negative x squared. So a reminder, we're subtracting all this. So that cancels. Negative 2x minus a minus x squared, so negative 2x plus x, or negative 2x squared plus x squared is what that will be. To leave you with a negative x squared. Then we bring down the next term. X divides into negative x squared. and leaves me with a negative x. Negative x times x is negative x squared. Negative x times negative 1 is going to be negative positive x. So a reminder, once again, we are subtracting. So those cancel. And then I have 5x minus x, leaving me with 4x. Bring down the next term. So now x goes into 4x. If I divide that, I'm just left with 4. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. In this case, what you're going to see is that both of these cancel out, and you're left with a remainder of 0. So my remainder is 0. So that means x minus 1 is a factor of the polynomial. And just to go a little bit further with that, so this one didn't work. I'm going to get rid of it for right now. What that means is it's one of my factors. So x cubed minus 2x squared plus 5x minus 2, one of the things I can factor out of it is an x minus 1. And this is what would be left over. X squared minus x plus 4. So the purpose of doing this is then, if I wanted to, I can try to completely factor this if I can factor further. This one doesn't factor any further, so this is the best I'm going to be able to do with it. Okay, so as you remember, we said that this was a linear factor. So that means that we have a 0 at x equals 1. And as you see from the graph of this, we do in fact have a 0 at x equals 1. Okay. So the polynomial of the x cubed minus 2x squared plus 5x minus 4 is called the dividend. So it's what we divide into. And x minus 1 is called the divisor. It's what we divide by. What is left over, if we can divide completely, is called the quotient. So that x squared minus x plus 4 is your quotient. So just to show you that this part here is dividend, divisor, and quotient. So when dividing a polynomial p of x by a divisor d of x, so that little divisor is its own little function, and a polynomial q of x is the quotient, and a polynomial rx is called your remainder. The quotient must have a degree less than the dividend p of x. The remainder must be either 0 or have a degree less than the divisor. So what you should have, so our divisor was 0 in the one case, is that you would have your divisor times your quotient plus your remainder. So just to go back a little bit. So in this case, where we had a remainder of 64, that means that the alternate way that I can rewrite this is that x cubed minus 2x squared plus 4x minus 4 could be rewritten by the divisor. So x plus 3 times your quotient. So x squared minus 5x plus 20. And then you have that remainder. That. Okay. So problems 9 and 10 are the two I'd like you to work on. So it's factoring your polynomial. So the first one, we have a factor like we've always had. So like x and some number. 10 is a little different. We have a 3x minus 2 we're factoring, but you're just remembering it's this first part of that divisor that you're dividing in. So you want to take 6x cubed and see how many times this 3x divide into it. In either case, if it is a divisor, then try to rewrite your polynomial in factored form now that you have a factor. All right, so take a moment on that and then come back when you're finished. Okay, so we have 5x squared plus 3x minus 2 is our dividend. Our divisor is x plus 1. So 5x squared divided by that x would leave me with 5x. 5x times 5x, or 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times 1 is 5x. And as a reminder, this is being subtracted. So this cancels. I have 3x minus 5x. I'm left with negative 2x. Bring down the next term of negative 2. So x, can I divide negative 2x by x? Yep, I can, and I'm just left with negative 2. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times positive 1 is negative 2. I'm subtracting that, so that goes away. Negative 2, what's going to be negative 2, so negative 2 plus 2 cancels out. We're left a remainder of 0. This means that 5x squared plus 3x minus 2 is going to be equal to the x plus 1, and then this part that we factored out. So in this case, I essentially factored my polynomial completely. All right, so for this one, my divisor is 3x squared minus 2, and they're dividing into 6x cubed plus 11x squared minus 31x plus 15. So, like I said, we're focusing on this first part. I get 6x cubed. If I divide it by that 3x, I'd be left with 2x squared. 2x squared times 3x would be 6x cubed. 2x squared times negative 2 is negative 4x squared. That is all being subtracted. That's gone. We have 11 minus 4, so 11 plus 4, 15x squared. Bring down the next term, which is 31x. 15x squared, can I divide that by 3? I can, and I am left with a 5x. 5x times 3x is 15x squared. 5x times negative 2 is negative 10x. Remember, we're subtracting this. This is gone. Negative 30. And then this is going to be subtract a negative. So negative 31 plus 10 would leave me with a negative 21x plus 15. So one more time. 3 goes into 21. 21x. 3x goes into 21x and leaves me with a negative 7. Negative 7 times 3x is negative 21x. Negative 7 times 2 is going to be or negative 7 times negative 2 is a positive 14. We're subtracting. That's gone. And then I'm left with a remainder of 1. So I can't really factor this one. I can just say this. That's 6x cubed plus 11x squared minus 31x plus 15 is going to be equal to 3x minus 2, 2x squared plus 5x minus 7, because that's my quotient, plus that remainder of 1.